I hope he was recording when we did that.
I find a tremendous amount of gratification knowing where my fish are going and knowing that the person that's going to sit down at the dinner table and eat my fish knows where it came from.
Hi there everybody, this is Adam coming to you from One Barrel Brewing Company. We're excited to be a part of the Cooking with Cap Times event today. Big thanks to Cap Times, big thanks to Wisconsin Distributors, Kessenich for hosting us, for Chef and Baker Olivia Tierney. Today we're going to be featuring our spring seasonal brew. It's called Pete's Wheat. It's a German style wheat brew brewed with red wheat. Very traditional Hefeweizen, 5% ABV, super refreshing, easy drinking, warm weather brew, available in stores near you. Thank you so much and enjoy your Pete's Wheat.
Cheers to you, One Barrel Brewing Company. That is our official beer sponsor. Thank you so much for that message. And before that was a video from our presenting sponsor, Sitka Salmon Shares. And thank you all for joining us tonight for Cooking with the Cap Times with Olivia Tierney. I'm Chelsea DeCane-Jarovic, the audience strategist here. I'll pass it off to our food editor, Lindsay Christians, in one sec. But first, I want to thank our sponsors for making this video event series possible. Our presenting sponsor, like I said, is Sitka Salmon Shares, monthly deliveries of premium wild-caught Alaskan seafood. Use code COOKWITHCAP to get $25 off the first month of a premium Sitka seafood share, and learn more about their values and fishermen at sitkasalmonshares.com. We will drop this code and link into the chat. Our official kitchen sponsor, where we are this fine evening, is at Kessenich. For over 90 years, Kessenich has provided Madison and Dane County with quality products and outstanding customer service. Stop by their showroom to shop like a chef because they're always open to the public. You can visit kessenich.com for more info. And like we said, our official beer sponsor is Pete's One Barrel Brewing Company, Pete's Wheat this month. I hope you guys had a chance to get some. If not, no worries. We're going to give away some 12 packs of Pete's Wheat to 8 lucky viewers tonight. Our coworker Chris is going to post that link in the chat where you can enter to win. It's really good. Really like it. So thank you so much, One Barrel. And we also want to thank any Cap Times members for joining us tonight and for your continued support of local journalism and our newsroom. If you're not a member, you can become one at membership.captimes.com. We will also post that link in the chat, and we hope you become a member. Without further ado, I will now pass it off to Lindsay, who is one of Wisconsin's foremost food writers and critics. Enjoy the event.
All right, I gotta unmute myself. So we are each one half of an AirPod tonight. So we're like a double-headed hydra of some kind. It's gonna be great. Olivia, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So really quick, before we get started, can you introduce yourself just a little bit? Tell people where you work, what you do.
Well, my name's Olivia. I graduated college in 2019, so I'm still a little fresh out. I currently work at Garver Lounge in Garver Feed Mill, doing all their pastry. I also am a line cook at Harvest. And when I'm not there, I'm coaching gymnastics.
That's amazing.
Kind of all over the place.
Yeah, that's awesome. So why did you choose this recipe for challah tonight?
Well, it's something that I always had around. My mom was always making it, so then I learned how to make it. So I always had it around growing up, and also it intimidates people, and it shouldn't. And so, like, this is a way to show that it's not that scary. and to hopefully walk people through it.
Awesome. Yeah. So challah has like both the yeast part that's intimidating
Yep.
and the braiding part.
Yep.
And we're going to show both of those things tonight.
Yep.
Yes. Awesome. So let's get started.
Okay. Well, I'm not starting with the yeast or the braiding. We're going to start at the very end.
All right. This is what it's going to look like when you're done.
Kind of. Yeah. So these are two that I made earlier just to show pre-oven.
So beautiful.
Yep. And so one thing that you look for, because a lot of times what freaks people out with yeast is, you know, how do I know when to go to the next step? So when they're ready to go into the oven, they've puffed up from their original shape a little bit. And when you poke them, they take a little bit of time poking back. If you want to poke it, you can. Yeah.
For the record, we're both very vaccinated. I know this is like triggering people with masks. I just want to like reassure everyone that we're good.
We're good.
Yeah.
So I have an oven at 400 in the back. And then I just took this off the shelves at Kessenich's. So they really do have everything that you need. So in here, I have an egg yolk and a tablespoon of water. And I'm going to use that as an egg wash. And you don't have to do it. The main reason I'm doing it is to give it a really pretty color at the end. When you do an egg wash, I'm trying not to go super heavy because you don't want it to taste like scrambled eggs. And also I'm trying not to go right down onto the pan because you don't want it to stick to the pan at the end either. But I am trying to go all the way into the little cracks.
You didn't do parchment paper underneath these guys.
I didn't. Part of that is laziness.
Okay.
A lot of what I do is laziness, but also I found when making bread that I don't really like to use anything underneath because going straight on the hot pan, it gets a really nice crust on the bottom. So that's why there's no parchment paper.
You're just going to sprinkle poppy seeds here.
Yep.
We could also do like sesame, other things if you wanted to.
Anything you wanted to. I like poppy seeds, probably because my mom likes poppy seeds. So that's how it always was for me. If you want to get super fancy and go in like lines, you can do that. I just give it a good sprinkle all over the place.
Well, fun fact, if you have these and then you take a drug test, you won't pass it.
This is true. So
I found that out.
don't eat a lot of puppy seed muffins before a drug test. So it's been egg washed. It has poppy seeds. I don't want it to slide off the tray, but that's kind of what it looks like. And we're gonna send those into the oven. Oh, hot. Okay. Yeah. Convection?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think it does. And if it does, I don't have it on.
Good. Okay.
Kind of a rule of thumb. So there's a very awesome, super fancy oven that Lauren used last time when she was here. And I thought about it, but really fancy ovens scare me. When they're smarter than me, I don't really like to use it.
Too much digital.
And then like the temperature's always different. So like if I was to use that oven right now, I'd probably put it at 350, 375, just because otherwise with the fan and the super oven magic, it gets really, really, really hot. So now we're going to start from the very beginning, now that we saw what the end looks like. Yeah. So I have a kitchen scale. If you don't have a kitchen scale, that's fine, because you can also use measuring cups. So yeah, have measuring cups. So I have 1 1/3 cups of water in here, and I'm going to add yeast. And I know you would ask me in the very beginning, active dry yeast versus instant yeast. So when you're using active dry yeast, you need to proof it a little bit in the water. Whereas if you're using instant yeast, it's more instant and ready to go. So it doesn't need as much help in the water. You can just add it right in.
Does the temperature of the water matter?
Yes and no.
Okay.
It helps. So I have the yeast, and I'm going to add a tablespoon of sugar so it has something to eat a little bit. And then
It's alive.
it is alive. So the hotter the water, the faster it's going to go. If you get too hot, then you're going to kill your yeast. So you don't want to get too hot. If your water is really cold, sometimes it gives people more control over how long the rise takes. So I like to if you want like lukewarm water, you should be able to stick your hand under it comfortably, like bath temp water for a child. And that's the water temp I like to use. But if I know that I'm gonna not have as much time, I'll go a little hotter. If I know that I have a lot more time and it doesn't really matter, I'll use colder water.
Quick question about the yeast. If you've had your yeast around for a really long time and maybe it's not active anymore, is there a way that you would know that it's no longer alive?
Well,
does it bubble or something if it's working?
So yeah, this will start foaming up in about 5 minutes. And a lot of times if you just make bread and it doesn't rise, your yeast probably isn't working. There might be a like fancier way of checking, but I don't know one.
That's fine. Totally
So like
fine.
if this doesn't bubble with the water and the sugar in the 5 minutes, then I might want new yeast.
Got it.
So yeah.
Just really quick, where did you learn this recipe from? Like when did you start making it?
I helped my mom at home a lot. I think I asked her for the recipe when I went to college and wanted to make it like officially on my own, because otherwise I would just be like, she'd be like, okay, mix all this stuff together. And she would just put it all in a bowl and I'd mix it. So I've been doing it since I was really little. But I think like I got the recipe and did it on my own when I went to college.
That sounds, yeah.
Flour. So I am going to show how I measure flour just because it is something that really does affect your recipe and how it turns out. But I do like using a kitchen scale a little bit better because then you don't have to worry about how you're measuring it. And if you lose track because you're really all over the place and you're like, oh, was that 2 cups or 3 cups? You don't lose track when you're
Right.
So what I like to do, if you have a spoon, you can spoon it into the measuring cup. I don't have a spoon with me because I'm not that prepared, but so you don't want to pack it down. What you don't want to do is like get your cup of flour and then shake it to level it out and then add more because then you have way too much flour in it. So I just like to mix it up so it's nice and light. Get a good scoop. Take a knife or something with a flat edge and just level it off. And there's your 1 cup of flour.
Nice. My mom used to do this thing where she would have to say 1, 2, counting really deliberately loud. And I used to think it was for us, but it's actually also for her.
Yep. I've forgotten so many times how much flour I've used. So I'm going for, I put the amount, about 625 grams of flour.
About 5 cups is what's in the recipe.
5 cups. And if you don't know how much your flour weighs, every flour should have on the back like how much it weighs per quarter cup. It varies dependent on white or wheat or rye. Also, I do a lot of baking at home with meadowlark flours. And like their flour is going to weigh different amounts than.
Meadowlark Organics being a Wisconsin company, they do a lot with really cool grains.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I like that it's local and I can just like, I know it came from a good place and it's sustainable and all that stuff.
Origin Breads bakes a lot with Meadowlark Organics.
They
stuff.
do. Almost all their stuff is done with Meadowlark, and at all the restaurants I've been at, almost everything we do is Meadowlark.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So I have my 5 cups of flour. I'm going to add a tablespoon of salt.
What kind of salt are you using there? Is that a diamond crystal?
That is kosher salt. You can use iodized salt. It's about the same. When you're making a recipe in this batch, like in this small amount, it doesn't really matter. If you start doing like where you need half a cup of salt or like that much, then it kind of matters. And I like weighing it because this, which with such the like thick granules versus an like table salt, is gonna be a lot different when you measure it out. Then I have 3 tablespoons of butter. Now, I did leave a note that you can do it with oil instead. I like butter for flavor, and I also don't keep kosher, so it doesn't really make a difference to me if I'm making it for a Shabbat or for services. I would use oil instead, just because a lot of people there will be keeping kosher. For me, I've just always made it with butter. I like butter. Butter's got a good flavor.
Is it a 1-to-1?
Okay.
Okay.
And if I was gonna sub it out, I would do olive oil just because it would be another like good rich flavor.
Yeah, good flavor for sure.
And then You have your 3 eggs. My friend is making this recipe along with us, and she sent me like a very fancy video. She had her eggs all whisked together in a bowl and added them together. And so you might ask, why am I just cracking them in? That's the laziness part. I know it's gonna all get mixed together in the very end. So I have 3 eggs. I have the butter. I have the salt, and this is nice and foamy. I don't know if you can. I don't know if you can see. I don't know if you can see. Can you see it's foamy?
It looks almost like the head of a beer, actually.
I can kind of tilt it.
And honestly, to me, yeast always smells a little bit like champagne, which I know is the opposite thing. Like champagne smells like yeast, but it reminds me of champagne. It makes me happy.
So all that's gonna go in.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna dump it.
All right.
I'm doing it peasant food.
Yeah.
It's peasant food. And I'm doing it in a bowl because a lot of people don't have KitchenAids or stand mixers. You could do it in a stand mixer and it's even easier. I made the mistake earlier of going right in with my hand, and then I couldn't touch anything for like 30 minutes. So I'm gonna get it started with a spoon, and then when it starts coming together, going with my hands. And I'm gonna be doing this for like 10 minutes. So
Nice. All right. Well, so we can kind of talk about a little bit about the place of challah, like in your family, in your family history. Like, so you said your mom.
my mom is Jewish and my mom is the baker.
Got it. Okay.
Yep.
So she's the one who made this recipe.
Yep.
So, and this is something that would you have it every week? Like how often?
Oh, probably not every
Okay.
week. We would go to services for the high holidays or for special events and get together that way. And so we would make it for that. It also, if we were craving French toast, my mom would make challah because it makes the best French toast and the best grilled cheese, which are also not kosher, but it's delicious. So it was kind of just like always in the rotation. We had like a whole wheat bread that my mom would make. We had a white bread. We had an oatmeal bread, and we had challah. And this is going to need more flour, I can already tell.
How do you know?
Because it's sticking to my hand. And it's already taken all the crumbs off the bottom, and the dough is just very sticky and wet. So a lot of bread is just kind of by feel.
Yeah. What's the question? How much yeast?
Oh, sorry, I just put the yeast in and I didn't say. So if you have the little packets of yeast, it's 3 of them. Each packet is a 1/4 ounce. So that's 3/4 of an ounce. It measures out to about 6 3/4 teaspoons. So I did 2 tablespoons plus a little bit because it's peasant food and it doesn't, it's at that point. And if you are using instant yeast, you would reduce that number by 75%.
So you can do this with instant yeast.
You can. Yep, you can do it with instant yeast. Fresh yeast, I'm not very experienced with, so I don't know. But like a lot of this stuff you can just Google. Like, what's the conversion for instant yeast to fresh yeast to active dry yeast?
I feel like early in the pandemic, when we were all like on the sourdough kick, I had just taken a class at Madison sourdough, and I had like a really active starter, but we couldn't find yeast anywhere. So like for a while, I was like, okay, well, this is all I have. This is the only thing that will make my bread rise. But then it became kind of like a thing, like, well, I don't need yeast.
And in the very so there was no yeast anywhere, and I was like, this is annoying. I just want to be able to buy some yeast. But even the other day, I went to go get some yeast and there was no active dry yeast available. It was just instant. And I got like, that's when I had to figure out, can I make this with instant yeast? Because that might be the only option.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing that there's still like supply chain stuff this far. Like, of course there is.
Yeah.
The pandemic's not over. But like, yeah. Things like that. So you're putting more flour onto the dough.
Yep, because it still feels a little sticky to me. I had you feel the dough earlier when I brought in the first one, and you want it to be tacky but not sticky. So like I should be able to put my hand on it and take my hand off and dough won't stick to it. But there's a little bit, like resistance isn't quite the right word, but there's a little, like it shouldn't be just a smooth ball of flour.
Right.
then you have too much flour.
Ah,
But
so-
because you need it for so long, you end up just working in so much more flour. So you have to add in more and more and more.
Got it. So if you're doing it in the KitchenAid, is it going to be less time?
A little bit less time. I usually need it for like about 6 minutes in the KitchenAid, or until it's like at the nice, like sticky, not tacky.
On the fly, friends.
By hand, that's how I'm gonna talk.
Oh, okay.
By hand, it takes a little less time,
Got it.
or
Okay.
more time. Sorry, it'll
More
take
time.
like 10 minutes.
I mean, it looks like it works your arms, honestly.
Yeah, and this, I like, when I first walked into this kitchen, I was like, this is gonna be a bit annoying because
Yeah.
I want to be up about 3 inches just because of like, I'm very short, and this is more of like, if I was up taller, I'd have a lot more leverage. But
Yeah.
set yourself up for success. If you need a step stool, you need a step stool.
So you used to bake a lot of gluten-free things too, because your dad is gluten-free, is that right?
Yes, my dad has been gluten-free for like 13 to 15 years or something.
Okay.
A long time before it was a thing.
So is there a version of this that your mom does?
Nope.
No, okay.
We've played a lot with gluten-free breads, and like the less time, the easier it is to like change. So like quick breads and muffins and cookies and brownies are really easy to modify to be gluten-free. But like something that needs kneading, because the whole reason I'm kneading this is to develop gluten.
Right, okay. That makes sense.
So like if you're doing gluten-free flours and you have a kneaded bread, it's pretty hard to. I've tried, because I was like, oh, I can do this. This will be fine. It's not fine.
Yeah. So when you're doing a gluten-free recipe though, with anything you're baked, I always thought it was really interesting that you can't just do like a 1-to-1. Like you can't be like, okay, I have rice flour and I'll just sub it in for the all-purpose flour. Depending on what it is, it doesn't work.
No, not really. And like now that gluten-free is more of a, like, there's a lot more people who are gluten-free, you can kind of tell a bit, there's a lot more resources out there. But in the very beginning, because gluten in flours like helps provide a lot of structure, and if you take out gluten and like those flours, you've lost all structure. And like rice flour doesn't have a lot of structure in it, so like you need to provide like flavor and structure and proteins and all that stuff. So like with gluten-free flours, like I make a really good pound cake that has only rice flour in it, and that works because like there's so much more sugar and fat and like other things to offset. But if you're making like a sandwich bread or something that you want to be similar to a yeasted bread of some sort, just using a rye flour or a rice flour isn't going to work, because you don't have the structure, you don't have the proteins, and you need to offset that. Whereas like flaxseed and psyllium husks will come in for that.
Oh, right. Yeah. For our last Cooking with the Cat Times event with Lauren Montalbano, I was cooking out of her cookbook, and I made some cookies, and I was trying to make flax eggs, which didn't work, and I used regular eggs to my never-ending shame. But I feel like learning all of the components that go into like baking in that way, it's definitely a learning curve. And you were at Bloom for a while.
I was at Bloom and learned a lot there. I was in the savory kitchen, so I didn't do as much baking there, but like, and they're gluten-free. They made their own gluten-free flour mix, and I don't know what was in it, but there was like you can't, it's now like Bob's Red Mill has a blue bag, the 1-to-1, and that is our saving grace. But so Bloom makes their own, and it has like 20 ingredients for that same reason. Like you can't substitute one for one.
Right. So when you were doing a bread like this, would you normally do it by hand? Do you often use your KitchenAid mixer? Like,
I use my KitchenAid for everything. I'm doing this mainly just for ease, so I didn't have to bring a KitchenAid here.
Yeah.
Your phone keeps falling out. Sorry.
It's okay.
Okay, so
Technology.
this has been kneaded for I don't know how long, but it is smooth. Can I see it? And when you poke it, it comes back. Whereas earlier when we poked the done loaf, it left an indentation for a lot longer. Now, when you poke this, it'll kind of spring back a little bit faster. I don't know if you can see that.
Nice.
So this can go in the bowl.
Question from the audience. Did you go to culinary school?
I did not. I did not go to culinary school. I am very much self-taught, and then everything else is from restaurants I've worked in. My degree is in math.
That's awesome. Do you find parallels between math and baking? Baking seems very mathematical.
Baking is science. Baking is science when it comes down to it. So not necessarily between math, but there's a lot of science involved. So it's fun.
Nice.
Just got my scraps.
This is delightful.
That's
awesome.
Yay. I'm gonna throw this away really quick.
Oh, yeah. Bakery near where I went to school. I went to Michigan State.
Okay.
Go Green. But I would just get loaves of challah and like pull it apart.
Yup.
I love the
Yup.
structure of it.
Yup.
And it's very, as breads go, it's very light inside too. One question we had when I was sending out this recipe was about the amount of sugar in it, and I wondered if you wanted to address that.
So ours is from the James Beard cookbook from a long time ago. My mom says she doesn't think that the book is in print anymore. So
Yeah,
I don't, it's like beard on bread.
Beard on bread, yep.
We use just a tablespoon of sugar, and the only reason it's in there is to help the yeast. I know some challah breads have a lot more sugar, and that's like to help provide like sweetness. Like, so if you want a sweet challah, you can do that.
Nice. So, but you could add sugar, you could add honey if you wanted a little bit of a sweeter bread.
Yep, you could. Adding honey, I did a lot of that when I was in slow food, subbing out honey for sugar because we were trying to stay local, so that like it's a lot sweeter. Like if you have 1 cup of sugar and 1 cup of honey, the honey is going to be so much sweeter. So usually reduce it. I did it at least by half when I used honey and things. But you could add honey, you could add sugar. I've seen people add chocolate chips. I've never added chocolate chips.
I mean,
I'm sure it sounds it would be delicious. But the sugar in this recipe is mainly for the yeast and not necessarily for flavor.
Got it. Okay.
Are you ready to braid?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do it. Let's braid.
So I will show, this is the one I just made, and this is one I made earlier.
Oh, huge size.
So we got that. So it's about doubled. And when I poke this one, it just stays there.
It does. When did you make this one?
4:30.
Okay.
4:30ish.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you notice that the time is different based on the time of year and how warm it is?
Time of year, kind of. How warm it is, yes.
Okay.
When I was in college trying to make it, our apartment was always so cold, and I would get so frustrated that it would just take me like 3 hours to double in size. And that's the thing, like, so my recipe says 1.5 to 2 hours. Maybe it might only take you an hour depending on how active your yeast is, or if you're using instant yeast versus active dry yeast or fresh yeast. I have no idea, but yeah. So, oh, yeah.
You can do this later, right?
Nah, I don't think so. So I'm gonna start by cutting it in half because it makes 2 loaves.
That is my favorite kitchen tool, the bench scraper.
I love it so much. I just got this one. It's my new kitchen bench scraper. It's my favorite. So I'm gonna start with the easier one and what a lot of people have seen more often, which is just the 3-strand braid.
Okay.
If you want to get super technical, you can weigh it. I'm just gonna kind of guess. So you could weigh to make sure that these are all like about the same weights and make sure that that works out, but I'm lazy. So I'm gonna roll these out to be about 1/2 inch to 1 inch in diameter.
Kind of like a breadstick looking.
Like a breadstick looking situation.
Yeah.
And I did not put down flour on my work surface because I don't want it to get covered in flour. I want it to stay like that tacky, kind of sticking to itself situation, so that when I make the braid and bake it, it'll all stay together. Which,
so this is something where, like, on a level between, you said focaccia is like one of the easiest breads.
yes.
And sourdough is a bit more complicated to at least perfect. Baguettes are hard, right? But this is like sort of in the middle of that.
Yeah, like I mean, for a normal bread, that would be it. Like you would just,
Yes,
you'd make
right.
it, you'd put it in a loaf pan, or you just put it on a tray. What makes this somewhat intimidating and difficult is just the braiding right here,
Got it.
which I think is fun, actually.
I have a question.
Yes.
I don't know if you want to repeat my question. I don't know if they can hear me. Chris asked, do you ever put your dough in the oven to rise? I've read to turn the oven to 200, then turn it off.
I have seen that. And if you watch the Great British Baking Show, they do it a lot. They have like their proving drawers.
Yes, I've seen the proving drawers. I don't really understand them, but like,
I mean,
I've seen
so
it.
they're creating a warm environment for the yeast to grow, and it would like, the warmer the water you use, it would just speed up the whole situation. I'm gonna try and clear this off so we can see the braiding.
But if you need help with anything, just let me know. I feel like I just.
Yeah, that's okay. So yes, you can. I never have. Is the answer.
I have done that and it didn't go well, so I didn't do it again. Like it rose too quickly.
I would be afraid of overproving it, of just
Yeah.
like letting it go too far.
But I screwed up in all the ways. But who knows?
So there's two ways that you can go about the 3-strand braid.
Okay.
One is just starting from the top. So you would seal these together and then go over
Braid all the girls here.
and braid it like hair. I don't like that one because I find that I get a really like wide top and then it just narrows as I go down. So I start in the middle.
Okay.
So I line them up next to each other. They're all about the same length, same size. And I'll take the middle strand right around the middle and just put it over. And you're always, a braid is just over, under, over, under, over, under. So I take this one, it just went under. Now it's gonna go over. And then this one just went under. We're going over. So each strand is working its way under, over. This one just went under. Now it's gonna go over. And we're gonna work our way up to the top. And I pinch them all together and tuck it under.
You illustrated something that I actually had a question about, which is if you screw it up, can you undo it? And the answer looks like yes.
Kind of, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, yes. So now it's starting to stick together.
Okay.
So you might have to
Limited
re-roll.
time. Okay.
Limited time, but yes.
Okay.
So then you're gonna do the same thing. So this one goes over, then this one goes over. You're just going from the outside in.
Got it. Okay.
If you've braided hair, it's the same thing. And pinch that and tuck it under. And that is the 3-strand braid. There's also like 4-strand braids and 6-strand braids, and they scare me. They shouldn't, but they do. So I'm just gonna migrate this over and let it chill.
All right. It looks like best friends.
So if you can remember the one that I put in the oven about 20 minutes ago, it was a lot puffier and like you could see the strands working their way apart a little bit. This one has just been braided, so it's tight and not as puffy. And now we're gonna go with the,
Maybe show us one more time.
okay.
Looks like the captions are covering it a bit. Oh gosh. Oh no.
Oh no.
We don't want that. We want to be able to see it.
Ooh.
Isn't it cool? Yeah.
And then
I love realize. It's great.
if I poke it, I'll try. So if I poke it, it will kind of come back slowly, but it will come back. Whereas earlier, it just left a huge indentation in the one that had risen after I braided it. The 4-strand circle starts the same way. You're just gonna roll them out. I'm just gonna roll them out for now. Yep.
I mean, I haven't seen that rollout song like all day. Oh, this is great. So you have 4 here.
I have 4 here. So for the 3-strand braid, I did 3. This is going to be a circular loaf, and I do it with 4 strands. I've seen it done with 8 strands. I'm lazy, so I'm going to do 4.
As like the nervous baker in me would probably weigh them just because I get so.
If I'm doing them
Anxious,
for
yeah.
the restaurant, I usually will. Or if like I cut them and they don't look the right size or they're really off, I'll weigh them. It depends how I'm feeling.
Is this one like a level up? Like you start there
Yeah, I
Okay.
find this one to be, it took me a little bit longer to understand it. So I would say this is like your next step after the
I like
3-strand
it.
braid.
All right. Master three-strand braid, and then like graduate.
Moving on to 4 strands.
I love it. Something about this too, like it reminds me of like if you ever like pounded stuff for schnitzel, like if you're pounding chicken like really thin or pork, I guess. Like
It's very soothing.
it's soothing. There's something, yeah, something soothing about it. And I've heard from people who like hate to do like little tortellinis or whatever, and people who are like, no, it's zen, soothing. Like
I find it very soothing making bread. I find the kneading a good anger management thing. I find the rolling to be very meditative, and like, especially like once you find a good recipe that you like or that you feel comfortable doing, it's just like a mind numbing task. You don't really have to think about it.
yeah,
I listen to a lot of podcasts when I bake because I like can think about the podcast and not really about the bread, which is nice.
nice. Any recommendations for podcasts?
I listen to 2 right now. I listen to Pod Save America, which is a political podcast. I'll say that. But I found it a good way to get the news and not be very angry and depressed about it.
All right.
Like it's factual, but it didn't upset me.
Yeah.
I also listen to Armchair Expert, which is Dax Shepard. He just interviews a whole bunch of people. He had he's had a couple chefs on there, and I really like listening to it.
Nice.
I'm gonna check my time really quick. Okay. So I'm gonna go about braiding it.
4
So 4 strands,
Equal length.
equal length-ish.
Okay.
We tried. So I set 2 of them across lengthwise, and then I'm gonna take the other 2 and weave them. So it's gonna go over one and under one. I don't know if we can see this. Okay. The other one is just gonna be the opposite. So it's gonna go under and over. And that's our starting point.
Okay.
So we have 2 strands going sideways, 2 strands going up and down, and they're weaving. Each one's going over, under.
Like a basket weave.
Yes, that's the word I wanted.
Yes. Okay.
Or like if you've made a lattice, or like if you've
Sure,
seen
yeah.
lattice pie crust. And I think I drew this out numbering the strands, but if I try and number them in my head right now, it's going to really throw me off. So I'm just going to describe how I think about it. So if you look at like this strand just went over and this strand just went under. So kind of like when you braid, if you just went under, you want to go over. So I'm going to cross them with this one going over.
Going clockwise.
Yes. So now this one that just went under goes over. Same for here. This one just went under. This one just went over. So we're gonna flip flop them. This one went under. This one went over. We're gonna cross them, and same here. And that was 1 round. So now we have 2 strands and 2 strands, but now it's like a little off center. And we're gonna do the same thing again. So these 2 are a pair. This one just went over. This one just went under. We're gonna flop them like that. This one just went over. This one just went under. Cross them. Under, over. And same thing over here. So we're kind of just growing it while just going under, over the whole time. We're gonna do it again. There's not really a set number of how many times you do it. If you have like really thick, shorter strands, you might only get 2 rounds in. If you make really narrow strands, you might get a whole bunch of them. So that was number 3. It might get 1 more time. So on the last one, I'll cross them and kind of pinch them off and then tuck it under. So this one will kind of stretch, cross, and tuck them under. Like that. And then I kind of like to just round it out a little bit and make sure that everything's tucked under. Hold it up like that. Braid.
That's really cool. I feel like I've seen challahs before that have like eggs tucked in there.
I've seen that too.
It's pretty.
I've never done it.
Yeah.
That also kind of scares me.
Yeah. Did you know like if the strands are thicker or thinner, does it affect the texture of the bread?
Well, when that comes out of the oven, I'll rip into it because in the middle, it just all kind of like mushes together.
Yeah.
It all becomes one. So I don't know, because I always just stick with the same textures. Speaking of which, I'm going to check on the other bread. Whoop. Okay, they're still, so they're a little light, so I'm going to give them like 5 to 10 more minutes. So to know when your bread is done, if you have, this is my favorite kitchen tool.
I have one of those too. I like the thermopop a lot.
Yep, Thermapen is like a similar thing that you see a lot in restaurants. It's just an instant read thermometer. I use it for meat, but I use it probably more for bread, which is a little sad. I don't know. I don't eat a lot of meat. You're looking for a temperature between 190 and 210 for bread. If you don't have a Thermapen, they always tell you, oh, you're gonna knock on it and it's gonna sound hollow, which is true, but I find very annoying. I don't know why. So I just look for color and I'll kind of give it a poke, and yeah, a lot of it's just by feel. It's peasant food. It's peasant food.
All right, so awesome. So is that the demo bit? Are we done?
That's the demo bit.
All right. Okay. So I do have a couple questions for you.
Okay.
We're waiting for a few minutes.
Yeah, we're waiting for a little bit.
So you worked at Unity Slow Food.
I did.
You did some kind of Bloom, you did Kitchen Harvest. When you look at restaurants sort of coming out of this pandemic, like are there things that you want people to know? Like as we're coming back into restaurants ourselves, are there things that you, as someone who's behind the scenes, want us to know?
I think being in restaurants like since the pandemic started, it's been really interesting. A lot of them have shifted their view. Like Harvest, I would consider a fine dining restaurant pre-COVID. And right now we're sending out like these awesome 3-course meals, but it's like fish fry and lasagna is one of our top sellers, which is just like, not something that you would see. So like a lot of restaurants have shifted their view. And I think another thing is like, you can't really go in expecting them to taste exactly the same as before, because a lot of them, like the chefs changed. And from that viewpoint, if anyone out there has ever been interested in cooking, now's your time, because there was just an article about what's it called? The pie store in Middleton.
Oh, Humble. No.
No.
Bloom.
No.
Pie store in
yes, Hubbard.
Okay.
And I mean, and we feel it. It's at almost every restaurant. So pandemic starts, you cut almost your whole staff. A lot of them were part-time just to start, and they're going and doing different jobs because we had to do what we needed to do to get through. And now almost every single restaurant is hiring, and there's just not enough people to fill. So we had this big concern in the beginning, how do restaurants stay open? And now the concern is, how do restaurants reopen?
Right.
Like you can send out to-go food a couple days a week with 3 people. You can't serve 100 people 5 days a week with 3 people. So that's like the one thing that we're working with right now, is how do we get enough staff? And that's the main thing. How do we get back to where we were?
Yeah. One of the things that some of the places that you work with that you've worked for have in common is a focus on local food.
Yes.
And the farmers market is getting started again. I think it went back in person on April 10th, if I remember right. So I'm curious if you have any like things that you're looking forward to in spring in terms of local produce, things that you're excited to cook with.
I'm excited for my CSA to start.
All right.
I always do a CSA with Love Food Farms with David Bachhuber. Love them. And it's like, it's community supported agriculture. And it's, if you don't know, you pay up front a sum of money to get a box every week or every other week of vegetables. And it's a way of like you supporting the farms no matter what happens. So like, let's say there's 18 tornadoes this season, your box might be empty, but you supported that farm already. So I'm excited for that. I miss wandering around.
Oh, yeah.
Grocery shopping used to be like my outing, which I think I also get from my mom. Like that's her social hour, and she would go every other day. Yeah. And now it's like I grocery shop once a week, and I have to have my plan before I go. Whereas previously I would go and just kind of wander, or I'd wander around the farmer's market and get my inspiration there. Whereas now, like, it's go with the plan, order ahead of time. Kind of takes the fun out of it. So I'm excited to go back to wandering around.
Yeah. At UW Slow Food, you really focused on keeping that local thing pretty intense.
Yes.
Were there some substitutions that you made? You mentioned honey in place of sugar.
Yes. So I think a couple years before I started, it wasn't as intense. You know,
Okay.
it's good, clean, fair flow. Oh,
Timer.
hold that note.
All right.
We'll check again. I still want it a little bit more.
Turn the heat with the
Yeah.
honey.
Turn it up. Give it a little boost. It's being sluggish. So the year before I joined Slow Food, they did a 100-mile meal, and they
Okay.
sourced everything in a 100-mile radius, and that was kind of spearheaded by Mason Pertel of Elemento Noodles. And then when I came, we really tried to keep that. So all of our meats came from Seven Seeds or Fisher Family Farms, and you know, dairy products were from Bryant or Sassy Cow. One thing was spices and salt and pepper.
Oh.
We got that from the co-op because then we at least felt like okay about it. But there's really no, I mean, there's a lot of like local herbs and seasonings that you can get, but like cocoa powder,
Right. Yeah.
that's not really a local food, and a lot of times it's not very sustainably sourced.
For sure. Yeah.
So we would try and go to stores that we felt were getting a sustainably sourced product. And that's how we worked around that.
I remember when I tried to be like super intense about eating local for a challenge, I missed lemons and I missed olive oil.
Yes, citrus is very hard. We struggled a lot with that. We used a lot of vinegars instead, again, from the co-op. Olive oil, I don't really know if I have a...
I used sunflower oil.
Yes, that is what we used. We used sunflower oil, we used honey, but it doesn't really have that strong flavor.
Yeah.
So like olive oil would be hard to get a...
Question or comment from
Yeah.
Tom Whitaker.
Oh,
He said, of course, we missed you as a math tutor at West High.
Yay! That's awesome.
hi, Tom.
That's great.
That's it for another guest. If anybody else has questions, comments, comment them.
Yeah, please. Let us know if you have questions. I want to know, like, once your challah is done, you mentioned grilled cheese, French toast, other things you can do with challah.
So like in its most traditional form, you are at, you know, a service, you sit down for the meal,
Okay.
and a single loaf is passed around and everyone just rips off a piece with their hands.
Is that part of why it's braided? So that it's easily ripped apart?
Probably.
Yeah, okay.
Probably. I wish I knew more history about this.
No,
But
okay.
that's like, so like slicing it for French toast always feels weird to me because like I don't ever
Yeah.
slice it. You just like, you grab it and you rip it apart.
You rip it apart, for sure. So one of the recipes that you also shared with us was babka.
Yes.
Can you talk about, like, how is babka related to challah at all? They both feel kind of layered. in a similar
They're
way.
related in the fact that they're yeasted enriched doughs. So like with yeast and enriched with eggs and butter, and they're kind of braided. And I think that's a little bit where it falls apart.
Okay.
Then I think of babka more as a really fancy cinnamon roll.
Nice.
Um,
Sounds delicious.
and it would be like a step up from this. So like you make your dough,
Yeah.
and at the point where we just rolled it out, you would flatten it and you would roll it out like a cinnamon roll, and then you spread, you know, chocolate or cinnamon sugar all over it, which if you do chocolate, it creates just this incredible mess. And then you roll it up and then you braid it. So there's like this extra step of filling.
Yeah. Okay. Does it have to also wrap with the yeast?
Yep. So it
Yeah.
also will rise, and then it also gets baked. So there's an inserted step of filling it.
Got
And
it.
there's much more sugar in that dough because it's a sweet thing.
I mean, it sounds delicious.
It's pretty good. I like it.
Yeah. But part of the reason we decided to do challah instead of babka is because it's really messy.
It's really messy, and I think this is like a touch more user friendly, just a touch.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, plug for Bake Babka, BAYK. They are out of, I think, 931 East Main is where they're baking, I think. But there were some farmers markets, and I that looks amazing. And I would honestly like, there are things that I will try a few times and then I'll be like, and I will leave it to the pros. Like fried chicken,
That's how I feel about baklava.
Oh yeah.
I am leaving that to the pros. I'm not messing with it.
Yeah. A lot of layers.
A lot of layers.
Yeah.
And I'm not making my own phyllo dough.
Oh
like it just sounds like too much work.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Third time's a charm.
All right.
Okay, yeah.
So pretty.
Coming in hot. Okay.
All right.
Take this towel.
I would like to move it, but I don't want to wear my
I wish I always got applause whenever I take something out of the oven. That would be so nice. So I'm gonna pretend I don't have the fancy thermometer and just do how I would normally check it. So the outside is hard. If you can pick it up, which it's quite toasty. The bottom is also hard. And if you knock it, it sounds hollow.
Yeah.
I don't know if, can everyone here attest that it sounds hollow?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Speak for yourself, please.
I've lost most feeling in my fingertips.
Yeah. So actually, let's check that out too. Let's see what the temperature says. I'm just curious. Since we have
Watch it come out at like 150 and then I'm
Oh,
completely wrong.
live zooming, everybody.
There it is.
Beautiful. 203.
202. Yep.
204. Nice.
All right.
Nice.
There we are.
These are beautiful. Thank you so much. Do we have any more questions before we wrap up here? Yeah, awesome. No, that's great. That's wonderful. I'm trying to stay very present here, so I'm not paying as much attention to the Zoom as I would normally, but I'm really glad everybody's here. Hello.
You can let people know it'll be on Facebook after.
Yes, it will be on Facebook afterwards. That's a good call. I am hearing that maybe it's a little harder to hear me than it was to hear you, and I think maybe it's because we're sharing the AirPods. But oh, good. I'm glad the cameras worked. Yeah, but we're still sort of working all of this out. It's been kind of a learning process here. But these smell amazing. These are gorgeous. So people, if they want to like follow you and follow your work, I found you on Instagram.
Yes, you found me on Instagram. I do have a public cooking Instagram. It's Olivia Eats 3.14, which is pie because I love math. So otherwise, Garver Lounge and Harvest, a lot of stuff that I'm doing is on there too.
Nice. Are there any other things that you've been baking recently that are like bringing you joy?
I've been making a lot of muffins.
Nice. All right.
And I really like, there's a lot of things that I like when the pandemic first started. A lot of things that I used to eat a lot at home, I started making here. Like I made cranberry muffins, which is like always something that my mom would make at home. And I would make it here and it just like calmed me down a little bit. Sourdough, I've been making a lot of sourdough. Yeah.
Nice.
That's about it.
Yeah, no, that's great. Things that comfort you. I feel like that's part of what the name of the game is.
Yeah, and like everyone's comfort food is different. Like this is my comfort food.
Yeah, it smells so good.
Someone else's comfort food might be like a pan of brownies or a bowl of soup. Like this is my comfort food.
It's the enriched dough, like the egg, it just has this really, it's a little bit sweet. But it just, it's really wonderful. I've seen egg waxes using the whole egg, but you just use the yolk, and I wonder if it's a color thing.
A little bit.
Yeah.
I want to see if we can rip it open, but we're getting a little stuck. If you do bake without parchment paper, this is a risk, but I found that if you remove it from the pan as soon as it comes out of the oven, then there's less sticking. So traditionally you have your loaf and you would let it cool down a bit more, but you just rip it apart.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really hot. It's really hot.
I'm gonna burn myself on the camera. Oh, it smells so good. The sweetness is very present in there. And like, I can see wanting to add a little bit of sugar, but
You want some bread?
can I have some bread?
Yeah.
I'm just here to thank our sponsors once more. And before we sign off, we want to thank Sitka Salmon Sit Shares, One Barrel Brewing Company, and of course, Kessenich, where we are tonight. This has been such a joy to watch. As always, thank you both. And you can wrap up. I'll bow out again.
Thank you. Thank you everybody for coming. We are so grateful for you.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is fun.
This is so much fun. This is a joy. This is one of the highlights of my year is being able to do these events. It's just such a blessing. I love it. So thank you.
Yeah. That's all I got.